My brother's voice carried across the restaurant with the confidence of someone who'd never faced consequences for anything in his life. So I accessed Riley's brokerage account. She gave me her password years ago, remember? And liquidated those weird tech stocks she'd been hoarding. Cleared my credit card debt completely. $43,000 worth of garbage shares turned into something useful for once. He said it like he'd done me a favor. I set down my fork very carefully and reached for my water glass. Across the table at Maroni's, an upscale Italian place where my family gathered monthly, Dad was nodding approvingly. Smart thinking, Kyle, Dad said. Riley's been sitting on those shares for what, 8 years? Doing nothing with them. At least you put them to practical use. Mom looked vaguely uncomfortable but said nothing. She never did when Kyle was involved. Golden child syndrome, my therapist had called it. Kyle could burn down the house and Mom would praise his initiative in testing the smoke detectors. You gave him your password? My sister Jessica asked, looking at me with confusion. Why would you do that? I hadn't. But explaining that to my family required energy I didn't have right now. It was years ago, I said quietly. I don't even remember. That was a lie. I'd never given Kyle access to anything. But 8 years ago, when I'd been 24 and living at home briefly between apartments, Kyle had watched me log into my accounts. He'd always been good with computers, good at watching over shoulders, good at remembering passwords he had no business knowing. Well, crisis averted, Kyle continued, refilling his wine glass. I was looking at 22% interest on that debt. Would have been brutal. Riley's stocks were just sitting there gaining what, maybe 2% annually? Better to use them for something real. 2% annually. If only he knew. My phone buzzed in my purse. I ignored it. You should be thanking Kyle, Dad said, looking at me with that expression, disappointment mixed with resigned acceptance of my inadequacy. He saved you from your own indecision. You've been sitting on those shares since you were 24, doing nothing with them. No investment strategy, no growth plan. Just stubbornness. Stubbornness, I repeated. Holding on to something worthless out of principle, Dad clarified. You've always been like that. Sentimental about the wrong things. My phone buzzed again. And again. Excuse me, I said, standing. I need to take this. I walked toward the restaurant's entrance, away from my family's table, and checked my phone. 7 missed calls from Marcus Webb, my attorney. 12 texts from Marcus. 3 texts from Jennifer Chin, my financial advisor. 1 text from David Park, my business partner. I called Marcus first. Riley, thank God, he answered immediately. Where are you? Family dinner at Maroni's. What's wrong? Your brother. Falcon. Did he access your brokerage account? My stomach dropped. How did you know? Because Fidelity's fraud department called me 20 minutes ago. Someone liquidated 150,000 shares of Neuralink Technologies from your account this morning. The transaction was flagged because it's over $40,000 and the selling pattern doesn't match your historical behavior. I leaned against the restaurant's exterior wall. He just told me. At dinner. He said he sold my worthless tech stocks to pay his credit card debt. Marcus was silent for 3 seconds. Then, Riley. Did you authorize this sale? No. Did you give him access to your account? No. He must have used an old password he saw years ago. I never changed it because I never thought. I stopped. Marcus, why are you asking me this? Why does the amount matter? Another pause. Riley, Neuralink Technologies went public 6 months ago. You were a founding team member. Those 150,000 shares weren't worth $43,000. At today's closing price of $2,180 per share, they're worth $327 million. The street tilted slightly. I put my hand against the brick wall to steady myself. Say that again. $327 million. Your brother just sold $327 million worth of stock without authorization and kept $43,000 to pay his credit card debt. The remaining $326,957,000 is sitting in your brokerage account's money market fund right now. Minus taxes, you're looking at roughly $280 million in liquid assets. I couldn't breathe properly. Riley? Are you still there? I'm here. This is securities fraud. Unauthorized access to financial accounts. Potentially wire fraud. Your brother is looking at federal charges. I need to know, do you want to press charges? Through the restaurant window I could see Kyle laughing, Dad patting him on the shoulder. Mom smiling weakly. Jessica looking at her phone. What are my options? I asked. Option 1. We report this to the FBI and SEC immediately. Kyle gets arrested probably within 48 hours. He's looking at 10 to 20 years in federal prison for the dollar amounts involved. And option 2? We freeze all your family's trading accounts pending investigation, file a civil suit for damages, and let Kyle's lawyer convince him to settle. Either way, his life as he knows it is over. But option 2 might keep him out of prison if he cooperates fully. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer Chin. Riley, I just saw the Neuralink sale. Please call me immediately. The tax implications alone are going to require serious planning. Also, and I hate to ask this, was this sale authorized? I texted back, not authorized. My brother accessed my account. Her response was immediate. Oh my God. I'm calling my lawyer. Don't do anything until we talk. Another text, this time from David Park, my business partner at Neuralink. Riley, Fidelity called me as an emergency contact on your account. What the hell is happening? Are you okay? I replied, long story. Family situation. I'm handling it. Do you need me to fly out there? This isn't just money, Riley. This is your money. Your years of work. Your equity. He was right. 8 years ago, I'd been part of the founding team for Neuralink Technologies, a neural interface company developing breakthrough brain-computer interface technology. We'd been 5 people in a garage in Palo Alto, working 80-hour weeks, living on ramen and venture capital fumes. I'd been the lead biomedical engineer. My patents formed the basis of our core technology. When we divided equity, I'd received 150,000 shares, roughly 8% of the company. For 8 years we'd built something extraordinary. Last year we'd achieved breakthrough FDA approval for our first consumer product. 6 months ago we'd gone public at $1,200 per share. The stock had nearly doubled since then. My 150,000 shares had gone from a theoretical promise to $327 million in actual value. And Kyle had sold them for $43,000 because he'd looked at outdated paper statements from 2016 and assumed they were still worth nothing. Marcus, I said, can you come to Maroney's restaurant? Now. I'm 15 minutes away. Bring documentation. Everything. I want my brother to understand exactly what he did. Riley, if you're going to confront him publicly. I'm not confronting him. I'm educating him. There's a difference. I hung up and walked back into the restaurant. My family was still at the table, dessert menus open, laughing about something. Everything okay? Mom asked when I sat down. Fine, I said. Just some work stuff. Still doing that consulting thing? Dad asked dismissively. He'd never understood my career. I tried to explain Neuralink once years ago and he'd glazed over after neural interfaces. To him I was 32, unmarried, working some vague tech job that wasn't as prestigious as Kyle's position at a hedge fund. Something like that, I said. Kyle was showing Jessica something on his phone, probably his credit card balance, now blissfully at zero thanks to my worthless stocks. Kyle, I said calmly, can you walk me through exactly how you accessed my brokerage account? He looked up, surprised by the question. Oh, I just used your old login. From when you lived at home that one summer. You had it written down in your desk drawer, remember? I kept a photo of it on my phone just in case you ever needed help with something. You kept a photo of my financial passwords. For emergencies, he said as if this were completely reasonable. And it turned out to be lucky. You had all that dead money just sitting there. Now it's doing something useful. And you sold all 150,000 shares? Every single one. Fidelity made it really easy. Just clicked, sell all, and boom. $43,000 in the account. Minus some fees but still. More than enough to clear my debt. Jessica's eyes widened. Wait, 150,000 shares sold for $43,000? That's like 29 cents per share. Riley, what company was this? That's terrible. Neuralink Technologies, I said. Kyle nodded. Some neural interface startup you worked for like a decade ago. I remember you being excited about it, but obviously it never went anywhere. The original certificates you had said the shares were worth practically nothing. The original certificates, I said, were issued at 3 cents per share during our series of funding in 2016. That was the strike price for employee options. Right, Kyle agreed. Basically worthless. That's why The company went public in April, I continued. At $1,200 per share. The table went quiet. It's currently trading at $2,180 per share, I said, my voice perfectly level. 150,000 shares at $2,180 each is $327 million. You sold $327 million worth of stock to pay $43,000 in credit card debt. Kyle's face went from confident to confused to pale in about 3 seconds. That's not, no. The statement I looked at said. You looked at paperwork from 2016, I said. 8-year-old documentation showing the strike price, not the current market value. You didn't check the actual current trading price. You just assumed my stock was still worthless and sold it without permission. Dad's voice was sharp. Riley, that's not funny. If those shares were really worth that much. Marcus Webb is coming here right now, I said. He's my attorney. He'll have documentation showing the exact transaction, the current market prices, and the federal statutes Kyle violated by accessing my account without authorization. Mom's hand went to her mouth. Kyle, you said she gave you permission. I thought she wouldn't mind. Kyle said, his voice rising. It was just sitting there. You don't understand, I was drowning in debt and Riley's always been weird about money anyway, hoarding these shares that never moved. They moved, I said quietly. They moved from 3 cents to $2,180. That's a 726,567% return over 8 years. I was holding them because I understood their value. You sold them because you didn't. Jessica was scrolling frantically on her phone. Oh my God. Neuralink Technologies. $2,180 per share. Riley, this says you're on the founding team. It says you hold patents on the core technology. 17 patents, I confirmed. I'm the lead biomedical engineer. I've been with the company for 8 years. But you told us you did consulting, Dad said weakly. I do consulting. For Neuralink. As an executive team member. I just never corrected your assumption that it was freelance work. It seemed easier than explaining biomedical engineering to people who weren't interested. Kyle stood abruptly, his chair scraping. This is insane. There's no way those shares are worth, they can't be. His phone buzzed. He looked at it and his face went completely white. What? Dad demanded. Fidelity just froze my trading account, Kyle whispered. They're saying, fraud investigation. They're saying I need to contact their security department immediately. That would be Marcus's preliminary action, I said. He's protecting the assets while we determine next steps. A man in a suit appeared at our table, Marcus Webb carrying a leather briefcase. He was early. Miss Chin, he said formally. I apologize for the interruption. I'm Marcus Webb, Miss Chen's legal counsel. I need to speak with Kyle Chin regarding unauthorized access to financial accounts. The restaurant had gone quiet. Other diners were watching. This is a private family matter, Dad said, standing. You need to. This is a federal securities matter, Marcus interrupted. Kyle Chin accessed Riley Chen's brokerage account without authorization and executed a $327 million securities transaction. The SEC has been notified. The FBI's Financial Crimes Division has been notified. Fidelity's fraud department has frozen all related accounts pending investigation. He opened his briefcase and placed documents on the table. These are transaction records from this morning. 150,000 shares of Neuralink Technologies, sold at an average price of $2,176 per share. Total transaction value, $326,400,000. Kyle sank back into his chair. I didn't know they were worth that much. Ignorance isn't a defense for securities fraud, Marcus said. You accessed someone else's financial account, you executed an unauthorized trade and you kept proceeds from that trade. Those are federal crimes. Mom was crying. Dad looked like he might have a heart attack. Jessica had her phone out, clearly Googling federal securities fraud penalties. What happens now? Dad asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Marcus looked at me. That's up to Ms. Chen. She's the victim here. She decides whether to press criminal charges or pursue civil remedies. Every eye at the table turned to me. Riley, Mom said through tears, please. He didn't know. He made a mistake. Don't send your brother to prison. A mistake, I repeated. He stole my password, accessed my account without permission, sold my assets and kept the money. The only mistake was that he didn't check the current value before assuming I was too stupid to know what I owned. I never said you were stupid, Kyle protested weakly. You've been saying it for years, I corrected. Every time you've called my work, that consulting thing. Every time you've suggested I needed real financial advice. Every time you've treated my career like a cute hobby while bragging about your hedge fund job. You've been telling me I'm financially incompetent for so long you actually believed you had the right to take my assets. What do you want? Dad asked. Money? We'll figure out how to pay you back somehow. Pay me back. I laughed. Dad, Kyle would need to pay me $327 million. His entire net worth is what, maybe $400,000 in equity and retirement accounts? You and Mom have maybe $2 million? This isn't something you can fix with a payment plan. Marcus cleared his throat. Miss Chin, we should discuss this privately. The restaurant isn't. No, I said. They can hear this. Here are your options. Option 1. I file criminal charges. FBI arrests you probably tomorrow. You're looking at 10 to 20 years in federal prison for the dollar amounts involved. Your career is over. You'll be a convicted felon. His hands were shaking. Option 2, I continued. I don't file criminal charges. Instead, you sign over every asset you own, your apartment, your retirement accounts, your car, everything, to help offset the tax liability you created by forcing this sale. You also never access my accounts again, never give me financial advice again, and publicly acknowledge what you did. Publicly. Kyle whispered. I want a written apology, I said. Post it on your social media. Explaining that you stole from me, explaining that you thought my assets were worthless, explaining that you were wrong. I want everyone who's ever heard you condescend to me about money to know that you stole $327 million from your sister because you were too arrogant to check current market prices. That's humiliating, Dad said. It's proportional, I replied. He humiliated me for years by treating me like I was financially incompetent. Now he can experience humiliation while acknowledging the truth. Mom reached across the table. Riley, sweetheart, I know you're angry, but family is family. We can work through this privately. No one else needs to know. Everyone else already knows, I said. Fidelity knows. Marcus knows. The SEC knows. The FBI knows. My business partners know. The only people who didn't know are you, because you never bothered to ask what I actually do for a living. Jessica spoke up quietly. Riley, I'm so sorry. I never knew. When you talked about your work, I didn't pay attention. I assumed it was like Kyle said, some small consulting gig. I had no idea you were building something this big. No one did, I said. Because when I tried to explain it years ago, you all glazed over. Dad literally said, that sounds complicated, honey, maybe focus on something more practical. So I stopped explaining. I just kept working. Marcus's phone buzzed. He looked at it and frowned. Riley, I need to tell you something else. The Fidelity Fraud Department found additional unauthorized access attempts on your account. Kyle's been logging in every few months for the past 3 years, checking your portfolio. Kyle's face confirmed it before he spoke. I was just keeping an eye on things, making sure you weren't making stupid investment decisions. You were monitoring my finances without my knowledge, I said. For 3 years. I was trying to help. You were waiting for an opportunity, I corrected. You've been watching my account, waiting for something you could rescue me from. Today you saw a chance to pay your debt and play the hero, so you took it. You didn't help me. You stole from me because you genuinely believed I wouldn't notice or care. The table was completely silent now except for Mom's quiet crying. I need your decision, Marcus said gently. Criminal charges or civil settlement? I looked at Kyle. My older brother who'd spent 34 years being the golden child, the success story, the one who understood money. The brother who'd just stolen $327 million from me because he couldn't imagine I might be more successful than him. Civil settlement, I said. With conditions. Kyle's shoulders sagged with relief. You sign over all your assets, I continued. Full financial disclosure, full cooperation with my attorneys. You post the public apology I mentioned. You attend a press conference with me and Neuralink's legal team, explaining what you did and taking full responsibility. And you never ever give me advice about money again. A press conference? Dad said. That will destroy his career. His career was stolen money from his sister, I said flatly. His career should be destroyed. Marcus was typing notes on his tablet. I'll draw up the settlement agreement tonight. Kyle, you'll need your own attorney. I'd recommend getting one immediately. How much time does he have to decide? Mom asked. 24 hours, Marcus said. After that, Ms. Chin files criminal charges and the FBI takes over. I stood picking up my purse. I'm leaving now. Kyle, you have until tomorrow at 5 p.m. to sign the settlement agreement. If you don't, Marcus files charges and you're on your own. Where are you going? Mom asked. Home, I said. My actual home. The condo I bought 3 years ago in Pacific Heights. The one I never mentioned because you all assumed I was renting some cheap apartment. I'm going to open a bottle of wine that costs more than Kyle's credit card debt and think about how I want to deploy $280 million in post-tax assets. I started walking toward the exit, then turned back. Oh, and Kyle, that $43,000 you kept? That's theft. Marcus will be filing a separate police report for that. You might want to return it. Jessica caught up with me in the parking lot. Riley, wait. I stopped, hand on my car door. A Tesla Model S that I'd also never mentioned because my family assumed I took public transit. I'm so sorry, Jessica said. Not just for today. For years of not paying attention. Not taking you seriously. I want to understand what you do. Really understand. Can we have coffee? Can you explain Neuralink to me? I want to know. I looked at my younger sister. The middle child who'd always stayed neutral, never defending me but never attacking either. The one who just stayed quiet while Kyle stole from me. Jessica, I appreciate the offer. But I don't owe anyone explanations anymore. I spent 8 years building something extraordinary while my family dismissed me. I'm not going to spend the next 8 years teaching you to take me seriously. Either you do or you don't. I do, she said. I promise I do. Then prove it, I said. Show up at the press conference. Sit in the front row. When reporters ask about our family's reaction, tell them the truth, that you didn't know what I'd built because you never asked. That's how you can support me now. Honesty. I got in my car and drove away, leaving my family in the parking lot of Maroney's, probably still trying to process what had just happened. My phone rang. David Park. I heard, he said. Marcus looped me in. Riley, I'm so sorry. Do you need anything? I need to know something, I said. 8 years ago when we were starting Neuralink, did you ever think we'd get here? That we'd build something worth this much? Honestly, I hoped. But I didn't know. You were the one who always believed. Even when VCs turned us down, even when the FDA process looked impossible, you kept saying we had something revolutionary. You were right. I was right, I repeated. I just wish my family had believed it too. Their loss, David said. You've got a whole company of people who believe in you. A whole industry that respects you. Your family will come around or they won't. But either way, you're still brilliant. After we hung up, I drove to my condo in Pacific Heights. The 3-bedroom place with bay views that I'd bought in cash 3 years ago when Neuralink Series C funding had paid out. The place my family had never seen because they'd never asked where I lived. I poured wine from a bottle I'd been saving. A 2009 Chateau Latour that cost $3,200. It tasted like victory and vindication, and 8 years of quiet success finally acknowledged. My phone buzzed with an email from Marcus. Kyle's attorney just called. He's willing to sign the settlement agreement. All terms accepted, including the public apology and press conference. He's terrified of federal charges. Documents will be ready tomorrow morning. Also, congratulations on your exit even if it wasn't on your terms. $327 million is extraordinary. You've built something remarkable. I replied, thank you. And Marcus? Make sure the press conference is well attended. I want everyone to see this. The next week's press conference was covered by Bloomberg, TechCrunch, and the Wall Street Journal. Kyle stood next to me, pale and broken, reading his prepared statement. I accessed my sister Riley Chen's brokerage account without authorization and sold 150,000 shares of Neuralink Technologies stock. I believed these shares were worthless based on outdated information. In reality, I sold $327 million in assets. I did this because I didn't understand the value of what my sister had built. I didn't take her career seriously. I assumed I knew better about finance than she did. I was catastrophically wrong. Riley Chen is a founding member of one of the most innovative companies in the biomedical field. She's a brilliant engineer and businesswoman. I apologize to her, to Neuralink Technologies, and to everyone I've misled about my sister's accomplishments. The reporters had questions. Dozens of questions. About Neuralink's technology, about my role in the company, about what I plan to do with the liquidated assets. I'm reinvesting, I said. Neuralink is going places. I'm buying back shares on the open market. I believe in what we're building. I always have. That answer made the headlines. Neuralink engineer buys back $200 million in stock after brother's unauthorized sale. The stock price jumped 12% that day. My family didn't attend the press conference. But Jessica sent a text. I watched online. I'm proud of you. I'm sorry it took this long to say it. Mom called a week later. Riley, we need to talk about Thanksgiving. What about it? We're hosting like always. We want you to come. We want to start over. Understanding who you really are. Understanding who I've always been, I corrected. I didn't change. You just finally paid attention. Will you come? Please. I thought about it. About 8 years of dismissal and condescension. About Kyle's theft and Dad's approval of it. About a lifetime of being underestimated. I'll come, I said. On one condition. Anything. You introduce me correctly. Not as Riley the consultant. Not as Riley the tech person. As Riley Chen, founding engineer and major shareholder of Neuralink Technologies. I want my actual accomplishments acknowledged. I'm done being diminished. We can do that, Mom said quietly. We should have done that years ago. Thanksgiving came. I arrived at my parents' house in my Tesla, wearing a custom Armani suit that cost more than Kyle's monthly rent. Mom answered the door, and for the first time I could remember, she looked at me with something like awe. Riley, she said. You look successful. I am successful, I replied. I've been successful for 8 years. You're just seeing it now. The dinner was awkward. Kyle sat at the far end of the table, barely speaking, his settlement having cost him his apartment, his car, and most of his retirement savings. Dad tried to make conversation about my work but kept using wrong terminology, mixing up neural interfaces with artificial intelligence. But when Dad raised his glass for the traditional Thanksgiving toast, he said, to family. And to Riley, whose achievements we should have celebrated years ago. We're sorry it took a crisis to open our eyes. It wasn't enough. Not really. 8 years of dismissal couldn't be erased by one toast. But it was a start. After dinner, I drove back to Pacific Heights to my beautiful condo and opened my laptop. Neuralink had a new funding round coming up. New patents to file. New technology to develop. I had $280 million in liquid assets and a vision for what came next. My family finally saw me clearly. But the truth was, I didn't need them to anymore. I'd built something extraordinary while they weren't watching. And I was just getting started.